Hey guys. So, I'm gonna give people a chance to come in, but my name's Laken Horton. I'm a K-State Alumni 2019, so last year, not too long ago. And this is K-State Culturally, which is hosted by K-State Black Student Union as well as the K-State Alumni Association. This is the protest and advocacy segment. And today's guest will be Anita Easterwood. So I'm trying to see how. It's like, as young as I am, you would think I'd be real tech savvy, but I really feel like I'm not that tech savvy. So we're going to see how this goes on getting her to join. Okay. Okay. I think I did it correctly. So we're waiting on her right now.
Okay. Am I in here?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everybody.
So, guys, again, this is K-State Culturally, the protest and advocacy segment, which is hosted by K-State Black Student Union and the K-State Alumni Association. And if you guys are interested in more content and would like to see these videos, as well as the other videos that have been posted in the last couple of months of other interviews, you can go over to K-State Mac on Facebook, and you can find them all there, but you can also find these interviews on KSU BSU's Instagram. But we're going to introduce our guest for today, Anita Easterwood, if you want to talk a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So again, my name is Anita Easterwood. I graduated from Kansas State University in 2014. Ooh, 6 years ago. I'm getting old. Born and raised in Kansas City, Kansas, and I graduated from Sumner Academy of Arts and Science in 2009. I still live back in KC, back in my hometown. So yeah, I've been here ever since graduation.
Excellent. So yeah, everybody's here in KC. Go KC. Welcome. This is the city where everybody's popping. But I think we're gonna go ahead and jump into some of the questions that we have. So I want to start off because I feel like this is always a fun question to start off with because everyone's stories are similar, but most of the time they're different.
Yeah.
So how did you end up at K-State?
How'd I end up at K-State? Well, I'm going to be super honest because I think honesty is the best policy. I only applied to a couple of schools in high school. I didn't do well with my college search. I knew I didn't want to go to KU because it was too close. And so K-State was one of the schools I applied for. I wasn't super thrilled about it. It wasn't until I actually went to the college on a college visit and I saw the campus that I instantly fell in love. So that's how I ended up going to K-State. I was raised a Jayhawk fan. So I don't know, that bias, like you're kind of born with it and it sticks with you. But like once I got to campus, I was like, okay, this is where I need to be. So that's how it happened. It felt like an accident at the time. But looking back, I have no doubts. Like I went to the perfect school for me.
Honestly, I feel like it's really the fact that it looks like a castle that really draws you in.
Yes.
So many of us have that fairy tale fantasy, and it was just like, this is it.
This is it. And the grass was super green. Everyone was so nice. I said, hold on, I want to be a part.
Okay, so we're going to jump in because I feel like, one, you have a pretty magnificent legacy at K-State as the former president of BSU. As far as I know, like they said, you were a force to be reckoned with.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
You saved like three. They said, was it Black faculty and staff's jobs? Mm-hmm. And they said, I remember it was Alan. He said, watching her as she went in. He said, I've never seen someone like our age go in on adults. Like matter of fact, it was administration. They said it was amazing to see.
Wow.
So we should start off with like the beginning. How did you decide on becoming the president of BSU? Like what kind of influenced you to get involved with BSU in the first place?
Yeah. Well, I'm like a lot of you. I was introduced to BSU at the Welcome Back barbecue. And so that was where me and my friends clicked. I soon after joined, I think like my first role, I was like parliamentarian or something like that. And this is kind of when I was starting to learn more about myself and my interests. Because in high school, I wasn't very active in things. I didn't really have much of a voice, I wouldn't say. I didn't join any of the student panels or anything like that in high school. So after like my freshman year at K-State, I started to find my voice and to find what I was interested in. So I joined their leadership sophomore year. And then I had no plans on becoming BSU president because it's a lot of work, okay? A lot of work. But I was going about my day one day and I got a ride from Jessica Elmore and she was like, you need to think about being BSU president. And I was like, what? Me? No, I don't know if I can do that. And so she talked to me about it for a little bit. And then I ran it by my friend, Brian Williams. I'm sure you all know him. And he thought it was a good idea. And I just kind of sat back and I was like, well, why am I running away from it? You know, is it important? Yes. Could I grow a lot? Yes. And is it something that's needed? Yes. So that the talk I had with Jessica made me really seriously think about it. And that's kind of how it happened. I became president. And it was probably one of the most impactful roles that I've ever held up to this point. I'm 29 now. So, and I still think that what happened during my term as president had really shaped who I am as a person.
Okay, and so I noticed because Clark had commented underneath, he said the Sankofa that came underneath you. So could
Yeah.
you talk about how you thought, like, not even thought of that, but like what influenced you to bring that in?
Yeah, and here's the thing about my year. I also had a bomb executive board. Like everybody was just top tier. And so one of the things that we wanted to do was like we redid the mission statement and then we chose like an African proverb on like what really stood out for BSU. And so there was a few other ones that were listed, but Sankofa was like at the top of the list for me because it really aligned with everything that I believe in. Like you always have to go back. Whatever you learn in life, whatever skill that you gain, you need to make sure that you go back and teach it to someone else. So when it comes to Sankofa, it means it's not wrong to return from that which you came or something like that. And I'm like, this is perfect because this is who we are as an organization. I reached out to my friend Maurice, who was doing graphic design, and he came up with the logo for it. So it was just perfect. And I felt like it started to brand like who we really are to the rest of the campus. You know, like this is what we stand for. This is what we're about. If you want to learn more, hey, come on. But it was such a strong symbol. And even when we met with different schools across the nation, I mean, that's something that we were proud about. Hey, look, this is the brand that we're going out with. And I think that it inspired other Big 12s, other BSUs at Big 12 schools as well.
I mean, like you said, that became the brand because it's like
Yeah.
they still talk about that every year, like the
Yeah.
meaning of what the Sankofa stands for. So it's like you definitely left a mark. So you kind of built that foundation for what they have become, which is
Right,
great.
right, right.
And so the next question is, during your term, you organized the infamous opening meeting that addressed the university not wanting to renew the contracts of three established Black female faculty members. You invited the university president and provost at the time and the dean of the college. These three faculty members were under the leadership of. Why did you decide to have this open meeting? Also, out of this meeting, the topic of multicultural student center came up. Do you remember why you and your team brought this up?
Okay, I'm gonna answer the first part and then remind me of the second half too. I don't want to forget any pieces of the question. So first off, we didn't plan initially to have an open meeting. It evolved to that. It began because my vice president Mercedes Perry was working with Miss Janella Holmes, who was a teacher at the time at the university, and she had informed us that she was losing her job. And so there were some letters written back and forth between us and administration because we tried to handle it that way. And then when that didn't work, we said, okay, guys, well, let's go to the drawing board. How can we get their attention and how can we solve this problem? And so we put it on Twitter. And this was before like Twitter was as big as it is now. Like things go viral like that now on Twitter. That didn't happen back then. And so our education chair, Caleb Taylor, put it on Twitter. about the issue. You know, there's 3 Black faculty and staff that are losing their jobs, you know, and we want answers. And I believe he tagged the provost and it just took off. And then it's like, okay, well, the next thing is we have to address this in a manner that they take us seriously. Let's have a conversation with them, invite all of BSU, invite all of the Black faculty and staff, and so they can see, like, here are the problems that we have, and this is what we want solutions. Did that answer your question? Is there a part that I'm missing?
No, I think you answered it. Why did you decide to have this open meeting? You said it
Yeah,
didn't start
yeah.
off like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, again, it was brought to our attention. We tried to handle it, you know, behind the scenes, because you always have to go through the channels. You don't you don't go from 0 to 100.
Mm-hmm.
So we did things proper, and we did have guidance from our advisors and even other administrators helping us on the proper way to do this. And so once we decided that we were going to have an open forum, it's like, okay, now it's time to get some research. And at first, it's funny because I think about all the stuff that we were pulling together. It's like, well, I heard this story that this happened, and I heard that that happened. So we had like a task force, and we were writing down all these stories that we heard. And Dr. Myra Gordon, oh my gosh, I love that lady. I remember bringing it to her and be like, you know, this is what we're going to, you know, talk about. And she was just kind of like, it's not about what you feel. It's not about what you think you heard. You have to hit it with the facts. And so what we based majority of our information off of a climate survey that they had from a third party who came in and assessed the university and said, these are the areas that you're lacking in. And what was mentioned on that was a lack of Black faculty. And this is what you need to do to improve it. You know, so there's our proof that the university knew that they were lacking in that area. And so they had set some things in motion about how to improve or how to gain more minorities when it came to like Black faculty and staff. One of it included like having, I believe it was called like a diversity point person that was supposed to look over the potential candidates. And if the pool wasn't wide enough, if it wasn't diverse enough, they were supposed to scratch it and do it again, you know? So that was something that was enforced, but then was later that position, they had lost their power. And so this is all the information that we have brought up during the meeting. Like, look, we know that you knew. We know that you put a temporary fix there and then went back and took away the power from this position. And because of that, this is why we have low numbers. It was something like only 24 or 26 Black faculty and staff. Like, it was super, super low. And so when we, you know, brought it up to them, it's just like, when you stick to the facts, how can you defute that, you know? And so I think back on that, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for the guidance that we have with that, of how to present a proper case. And I remember it was under President Schultz at the time. I think that they were a little shocked that we came so prepared, you know, and we all looked nice. We were all in professional attire. And at the end of the meeting, I remember I said some things that I didn't even plan on saying because I felt like they just weren't really taking it as serious as we needed it. And he complimented us like, you know, we're proud that you guys brought this up to our attention. Everyone looks nice here and yada, yada, yada. And so I ended up saying like, you know, we're glad that you think we look nice, but that's not what we're here for. Like, what would you do if we were to pull our resources back from the university? Because everyone loves BSU when it comes to recruiting Black and brown students. You want to, you know, throw out all the, hey, they were top at BSU and this and that. You want to throw out all the fast facts. But when it comes to actually remembering the students who are here, it gets placed on the back burner. So what happens if we were to no longer do your tours, if we no longer came up to the recruitment events, what would you do then? You know, so the reason why I mention that is because it's like, we can't afford for this to fall on deaf ears. Like, you have to hear us and you have to act, because this is hurting your Black students who are here. Your second half, you asked about the multicultural student and or the center, how that came up.
Yes.
So that it was brought to our attention that was something that they had been fighting for some years, like well beyond my presidency. And so I brought it up because I think it's important, especially when you think about how you want to make sure that your university is up to date, just like all the other universities. And a lot of the other universities have a multicultural center. And so we told them like, hey, we know that you guys have been, this has been brought to the table, and yet nothing has been done, and we need something done with that. And I think it still didn't really get the ball rolling on the Multicultural Students Center until maybe like a year or two after I left.
Like Abdul said, he said years. They said, I'm pretty sure they said it was at least like a 15, 20-year period of them talking about
Yeah.
something like that.
And I remember I was talking to some students who came after us, and they were saying things like they were just having so many issues on like agreeing on how the space should be used. And they had said something like, we have to make sure there's actually study rooms in there and that people are actually studying. And I'm like, hold on. That is nonsense. No one builds a library and says, we need to make sure that the kids actually come here and read these books. It's like, why is this extra criteria applied to us because we want a space for us, and now you want to police how we use it? It's just like the reasoning that they were giving as to why we can't have the space were nonsense. So I would tell them like, hey, that's background noise. That doesn't matter. Like all this stuff that they're saying, these reasonings, is just, at the end of the day, there were a lot of people who just didn't want it. They didn't want a multicultural center in there because they didn't want to feel excluded from it. You don't have to police students on how to study or how to use their resources. We need this place as a safe haven. But people who never needed a safe haven don't understand that. They want to come in and make sure that, was everything, are they being too loud? Are they doing this and that? And it's just, it was just so many frivolous things that were just brought up that it's enough to make your head spin. It's like, no, at the end of the day, Black students and minority students need a place to feel safe. Give them that.
That's good, because like as you speak on the fact that people were constantly coming up with different criteria and excuses, I mean, it's like the fact that people have been saying that even during like the 4 saying that all 5 years that I have been there, constantly.
Right.
Every time I brought up, people was like, well, like we should do it. Like, are we allowed to use it? Like, we certain things. So it's like, but it didn't matter what period in time you were in. Those same kids, even if it was 20 years later, still had that same energy and ready to like, nope, we don't want to hear it all. So that was for
we don't
sure.
want it. That's the line. Yeah.
So the next question, you kind of talked about how you prepared for the meeting. It was like a lot of research, a lot of sitting down and looking through some of the things that the third party had like kind of analyzed about the university. So what feelings did you have leading up to the meeting, knowing you would be confronting administration? Because I feel like oftentimes people are nervous.
Yeah, I was really nervous, and I was really stressed. Like I was, I want to say I was like 5 or 6 months pregnant at the time too. So it's just like, I'm sick, I'm throwing up every morning, I'm going to school, and then I'm preparing for this meeting. And we had a lot of support from students and faculty alike, but there were also naysayers. And so I had to make sure that I just went on Twitter. I didn't listen to people who, I remember seeing this guy who wasn't even involved in anything, but he wanted to tweet. He said, I heard that isn't even what happened, and that they don't really know what they're talking about. Like, he put that on Twitter, and it's like, now I could just think about that all day, but what would have got me? Like, nowhere. So it's just, I had to just zone in, focus on the facts, and just like ask myself, at the end of the day, do you believe that you're doing the right thing? And the answer was yes. And it was a lot of pressure. I'm not gonna lie. It was a lot of pressure. It was a lot of eyes on us. But I mean, that's why we had to make sure that we were prepared, triple check every fact that we brought up, and just, carry it through. You had to.
So like, okay, so this next question is kind of, because like even before we had gotten on to the live, we kind of discussed the atmosphere of like, once you left, how everything kind of went down here. We lost Mike Brown. It's like all of these different incidents happened on campus and even continue to happen now. But it's like, what was kind of the atmosphere during that time that you were at K-State?
Like, what was the climate while I was there? I mean, I think you always dealt with microaggressions regardless of what we went to K-State. So me, and we talked a little bit about this before we got on the live too, how when you're in high school, you really don't understand all the complexity of being Black. Like, you know that you're Black, but you don't really know much about microaggression, things like that. So when I got to K-State, I just felt like I was somewhere completely different. I felt like why don't people move out the way when they see me coming down the street? Like, I didn't know that was a microaggressions. Like, white people would literally not move over, and so you would have to move in order for them to keep coming. I mean, that's something I stopped doing altogether now, but I'm just giving an example of the things that you would deal with, to where if anybody else saw it, they wouldn't think anything of it. But as a Black person, you keep thinking, why does this happen to me? But I would say that this question is a little tough for me because I built up a defense mechanism kind of early on at K-State. I remember I've always liked the school, and I've always liked my classmates and things like that. But I do remember feeling ostracized a lot in my classes. Like, I felt that everyone else quickly made friends, and for whatever reason, I didn't make friends easily. And so I remember my sophomore year, I applied for a job, and we had to do a group interview. And one of the little tests was we had to come up with a play. And so everyone was incorporated into this play. Now, mind you, none of us know each other, but everyone else had a role in the play. They didn't give me a role, but I had to, like, when we actually did the play, I had to insert myself in the play. So I was made known to the panel, you know? And so at the end of the day, I was the only one who got the job out of that group, so whatever. But I remember thinking after that point, like, I will no longer go out of my way to befriend anybody here. You know, like, if I will always be nice, I'll always be cordial, but I don't want to just always think about why don't they speak to me in class? Like, why don't they want to work with me? I went to class, I did my work, I didn't seek friendship, none of that. So I think that when I think about that question, it's just kind of like, a lot of it I blocked out. It's not like it was as hostile as it was the years afterwards. We didn't have the incidents with Yik Yak yet, where they were on there commenting and calling people monkey and all that stuff. But there were other instances where they would write things in the column, in the Collegian, about us, and we would rebuttal. You know, so you always had people who felt like we should be doing things a certain way, or there shouldn't be a BSU, or we should have more say over who they bring in to speak, all those types of things. But I don't think it was at the extent that it is now. Did that answer your question? If you ever want me to go into more detail on something, just let me know, because sometimes I just feel like I ramble. And if you need to rein me in, just rein me in. Okay, wait.
No, I think you hit on it. Okay, hold on.
I can hear you.
Am I good now?
Okay, yes. It's lag. Yes, you're good.
Oh, I I could not. You would think you come to a place that's literally built for people to work online,
Yeah,
and this Wi-Fi would be spectacular, and it's not. I was
that's okay.
so panicked about this. Okay,
We're
so,
back.
but no, I was saying everything. Like, you were pretty much explaining everything really well. Like, I'm getting all of it. The next
Okay.
question was, what was the pulse of the Black community at the time of your presidency?
What was the pulse of the Black community?
And this is Jessica came up with this question. So, Jess, if you want to expound on this, because I'm like
Yeah.
assuming like what what kind of really moved the Black community to like go as like you guys kind of rebranded yourself. So what was really like
Mhm.
motivating you guys for this like change that you wanted to happen, not only for on campus, but like within the Black community itself?
Mhm. Mhm. I want to say we were just wanting more, and I think, oh, what was my mission? My slogan for the year was like higher level or something like that. Something next level breakthrough. I don't know. Clark, Brian, if y'all are watching, y'all remember, if y'all could comment. I can't remember, but I know it was something like elevating, you know what I'm saying? Um, and I was real serious about that. Just first of all, identifying who we are and then letting everybody know. And I think that in the years that I served, we just had some really heavy hitters, whether it was on exec board or even in the audience, because look at the legacy that came after me. It's like those are all people who are already involved in BSU. Like you have people who are just really serious about wanting to be treated right for one and just be successful and possible at K-State. And so I really think that we enjoyed each other's company. Um, we loved traveling together to all the conferences. I mean, and we love to work hard. Like that sounds crazy, like we love to work, but we really did. Like when we found a project that we were passionate about, we would stay up together for hours, you know, whether it was bringing a certain speaker there, making sure that the grant application was correct, whether it was working on the delegate book, you know, conference, the Big 12 conference, I think that happened under my year. We worked our butts off to make sure that everything we did was just like next level. Wait, I can't.
Brian or Clark said a
Deeper level,
deeper
yes,
level.
that's it. I knew it was something. It was something deeper level. I still have the shirt somewhere here, but yeah, that was a good year.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can. It's a lag, but I can still hear you.
Okay. So it says, as president of BSU, it seems that this position consistently finds itself in major conversations and to confront administration. What advice do you have for leaders in this position now? What
Hmm.
lessons did you learn?
Yeah. Um, I think that this position is probably more important now than ever, for sure. And one thing that was told to me before I stepped into leadership was that you need to understand that you are the face of the Black community at K-State. Okay, from this point forward, you are the person that they're going to come to for any and everything. And with that being said, there's also things that you have to abstain from because you are a leader. It just comes with the role. So if things are getting too wild, I mean, because everybody had, you know, parties, kickbacks, whatever, things are getting too wild, you don't need to be there. Okay. If people are in some drama, you don't need to be in it because there's always going to be a light shined on you. And that was something that was explained to me beforehand and something that I did take very seriously because when things popped off, who did they call for a statement? The BSU president, you know, when things are, even when people who aren't Black students who aren't involved in BSU, when they have an issue, like they still come to you, they ask for your advice, you know? So just understand in any type of leadership role, there's going to have to be sacrifices on your part. And if you're not willing to do that, then you have to think about, is that something that you want to do? The second thing is that the most important thing about being a leader is that you're a servant, and I love that. There was so much service in leading that. I mean, I think that's why I enjoyed it so much. It's not about the spotlight. It's not about the accolades. Those things come because of your service, but that should not be your goal. Um, and so also when it comes to working with administration, you have to do things in order. And I want to stress that to whoever ship in this day and age, because again, if you go back to social media, things pop up so fast, you know, and you see something online, something that you find a problem with, and you're like, I want to investigate this more. Do your research, because there's nothing worse than being loud and wrong. And you don't want to be out here looking foolish and you are leading an organization and they're following your orders and you don't have correct information. The other thing is you have to make sure that you go through the channels. So like back what I said, like when we had this confrontation with the administration, we didn't start with the meeting. We started with, let me talk to them behind the scenes. Let's document everything, but let's start here, and then we progress. You know, there's always channels, because you want a peaceful solution if that's possible. You know, another thing is, don't be scared to be radical. It's getting to that point to where you have to be. You just have to make sure that it's justified, and that you're covering all of your bases at the same time. Again, go back to social media. Are you tweeting stuff that's out of line? Because once it's out there, you can't take it back. You know, so to all my leaders, just don't be fearful. Don't be fearful, and take care of yourself, and just always ask yourself, like, am I doing the right thing? Is my heart in the right place? And find yourself a support system. But your voice, I mean, it's just so crucial, because you don't realize how many people are looking at you. Like, before, we were talking before the live, and you told me things that you had heard about me that I never knew. And so for me, as a leader 6 years removed, it's just like, oh my gosh, like, what you do matters, you know? So even when you think it doesn't, someone is depending on you, someone's looking at you. So it's just really important to remember that.
And so the next, this is kind of like the next phase of questions.
Okay.
I know when we were talking before, you had discussed how like your activism has kind of evolved over time. Like, what your activism was during the period of time that you were at K-State is not the same as what you're doing now. And so kind of speaking on that, what can you speak to, like, students on, like, the stages of activism that it may not all.
Yeah. So, I mean, my activism at K-State was very visible and very vocal, a lot because, one, it was part of my personality, but also because of the roles that I held. So I had to be the person who spoke about things, because I was the BSU president. And so I took a lot of the front line, and my leadership took a lot of the front line. My team took a lot of the front line, because that's what we signed up for. Once you leave college and you leave the titles, just a little backstory. After I graduated from K-State, I went on to KU. I know, don't hate me. I still have a love for Jayhawks, but I went on to KU and got my master's in Black Studies. And so I was just writing and researching and reading about all the, I mean, you know, history, you know, everything at the same time. As, like, you know, Mike Brown and the BLM movement is, like, rolling out simultaneously. So I hit, like, a burnout session. Like, I was doing what I could academically, writing and doing research, and created a thesis that contributed to the body of work that talks about the stress of being a Black student at predominantly white colleges. So I felt like at that time of me being a student, my activism was research. You know what I'm saying? But in my day-to-day life, was I out here, like, fighting on the front lines? No, I didn't. For one, didn't have it in me. For two, that just wasn't my role at that time. Then after I graduated from KU, I taught for a few years. And so there's a different phase of my life now. What does activism look like now? Sometimes it's all about how you carry yourself. So I taught 9th and 10th graders, and I didn't shy away from the discussion of race. I didn't shy away what it meant to be marginalized as a people. I had very open conversations. I had a lot of speaking engagements at my church. You know, I helped, you know, educated people at my church, which I loved. I enjoyed doing stuff like that. I'm also a member of Delta Sigma Theta. And so I use the programs that we did through there just to, like, continue my activism. So those were my vehicles that I used to just, you know, channel my passion and my focus. That was my platform at the time. And now I feel like I'm entering another phase. It's like I'm getting more serious about my art, because I'm also an artist. And so along with me being an educator, like if I go somewhere and I speak about Black history or just how I carry myself, I'm also making sure that I'm intentional about putting how I feel into my artwork, you know? And so I feel like that this is a phase of activism that I've dabbled in before in the past, but now it's just like I'm taking another serious look at it. So I feel like it just ebbs and flows in the way that I've the things that I've done over the years, it just adapts with your life. And I think it's very, very important for each person to take a look at who they are and understand that what their role is, because not everybody is going to be down at the protest, and that is okay. There were protests here in Kansas City, and I didn't go. For one, I was scared because Corona, so that's something that I'm very, very nervous about, and for two, it was dangerous, but I support everyone who is out there. You know what I'm saying? So don't think because you're not physically out there with the protesters that you're not doing anything for the movement. Well, no, you could be paying towards somebody's bill. You could be educating people on the side about why it's important that Black Lives Matter. You could be making sure that you're tutoring young kids who are struggling at this time. Like, there's just so many facets to this. Don't think that everything has to be protesting. And so understand what you care about and just play your role, because this is a long-term thing. This is a long-term thing. It's not like if you didn't protest last week that you're just done. Nope. You still have a mantle carry. You still have something to do. And also, if you think about the civil rights movement, the biggest misconception is that everybody thinks everybody was out in the street protesting and doing that. No, it wasn't that way. There was just so many ways that they gave back. So just find your role and play it. Did that answer your question?
Yes. I also
Okay.
feel like that is very important for people to understand as well. I love the way that you kind of expounded on that and said, like, jumping in and saying, like, it's okay if you're not out
Yeah.
there fighting. Because it's like one of those things where it's like many people, including myself, it's like I feel embarrassed because it's like I want to go to this protest, but I'm going to be standing all the way in the back because just in case
Yeah.
something pop off, run. But it's
Right.
like I know that I don't have the heart to be there in the front constantly doing that. So for the people out there who are like, okay, in other ways, what can I do? So you were saying, like, in tutoring, in teaching, like, the youth
Right.
in the way that they're struggling during that period of time, that's a way of activism. It's like because you're
Right.
pushing that movement of Black lives by
Right.
teaching the youth and helping them
Right.
to succeed. So it's like there's so many different aspects, and I feel like just by you talking about that, that's extremely important for people to know, because
Mhm.
everyone feels like one role is better than the other, but it's not necessarily the case. All of these roles important for the movement to, like, continue on and be pivotal in, like, everyone's lives overall.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, very well put. I agree 100%.
So this one, I think we're kind of backtracking with this one, but it was like, what kind of relationships did you develop with fellow classmates during your time as a student leader and activist? You kind of spoke on it was like hard for you to make friends, but like in your position at BSU, what were those relationships that you had to develop, whether it be SGA or in LULAC or Halo or like different organizations like that?
Okay, let me go back in my memory bank. Whew. Okay. I don't really recall having like a deep relationship with other organizations, to be honest. I know that we were all cordial and we respected each other, but I don't really remember anything beyond that. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying I don't remember it. One thing that I had to be very mindful of is that when you're president, you have to make sure that you are approachable. So I did try to, and hopefully I didn't fail at this. I did try to make sure that the younger Black students that are coming in, when they see your face or whatever, that they felt like they could approach you and talk to you. So I think when I think about my relationship with my classmates, I think more so of like just like the student body overall, like how I presented myself to them versus people in specific organizations.
Okay. I mean, everybody's experience is within that is different. I
Right.
know currently they're saying that they're doing a lot more where they're being interactive, but that may not have always been the case. So that's good to know.
Yeah.
How does your leadership and Black voices impact what you did after you graduated from K-State?
Ooh, man. I mean, I can't stress how much my time at K-State has shaped me, because I remember we had a follow-up meeting with administration after the open forum. And I remember that there was a statement that was said that was like so out of line and like very petty and like it was meant to be a gotcha moment for us. And so I was about to address it because I was getting fired up. I was about to address it, and the president, he stepped in. He said, that's not the point. Like that we're not worried about that. This is the real. We hear you. He kind of smoothed it over. But I remember thinking, like, when it happened, like, wow, this is what it feels like when someone sits and lies to your face, and you have to figure out how to combat it in a way that's professional, but you're still being firm. I was how old was I? 21 learning that lesson. Someone who was twice my age, and so those are the things that stuck with me. Those are the things that I would never forget. I think about the times like how I learned how to interview, I learned how to dress, I learned how to speak, all of these things. When I graduated, I felt like I was years beyond other people who did not have that experience. Not people who didn't go to college, no, people who didn't have those experiences. Those are experiences that you had to go and seek, and so I felt like because of that, because of the challenges that we took on, because of the challenges that we weren't scared to face, and because of the experiences that we put ourselves in, like I was able to handle better like what came after, even with like my workload in grad school, even with like, because I felt like during grad school my confidence was hit a lot. I just had a kid. I went back from having a kid, graduated K-State, then right to KU. I couldn't remember things. My brain was so foggy. And so I just had to remember like everything that I've gone through thus far. And I'm like, like you got this, and I don't know if I would have had that level of just like persistence had I not done the things that I did at K-State.
And so I feel like the entire KC knows that you're a talented artist now. Like,
oh, thank you. You're too kind.
But just recently, you posted a photo of Breonna Taylor, and then in Kansas City, Kansas, you and your father did the Black Lives Matter mural. Can you talk about how you express your protest and advocacy through art and the importance of doing your activism through art?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So background about me, I've always loved to draw, like since I was a kid, because my dad's an artist, you know that. But my dad's an artist, so it came naturally. But I didn't understand the intersection between my Blackness and art until like a teacher brought it up to me. Because I was telling him, I'm like, I'm an art major, but everything I love to do is about Black people. Like, I feel like these two do not mesh. And he was like, look at your project that you've done this year. Everything has been about Blackness. And that was like the first time that it was like, oh, you're right. Because every class project that we did, I brought it back to something that I understood and loved, which was Black people, whether it was Black history, culture, fashion, whatever. I've always brought it back to that. And so that was like the first eye opener where I was like, you know what? I can draw what I want and what I care about. And so when it comes to like the mural that was done on 18th and Quindaro, that was actually, my dad came to me with that idea because he's a muralist. Like he's not new to this. He's true to this, OG, whatever, knows how to do it all. And so he was like, I really want to do something that supports the Black Lives Matter movement. And there was some nervous feelings that came along with that because you're visible, you're out there, you don't know how it's going to be received by the public. So we put our heads together, we came up with the design, worked really hard on the phrasing. Like that was something that went through the ringer a few times. Like, what are some words that we can put on here that's like uplifting, but it's also like very blunt. Like and you can tell that it was inspired by George Floyd. We don't want to shy away from that. And so we put our heads together, came up with the design, and the funding was all from donations. So the city like backed us 110%. Like it was completely amazing just to see that. And so when we finished, I think that is when it really hit home. Like, oh my gosh, like people care about this. People were tagging us in pictures and people were just like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. People were having events because the mural was there. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like that area didn't exist beforehand. No, they were doing it because the mural was there. So you're adding value back to something that you already know is priceless, And so for me and my dad, like when we look at stuff like that, we're like, that's what matters. The fact that the message is so clear and is bringing so much pride to our people. I could do that 100 times more and never get sick of it because the impact is just so great. And so when it came to the Breonna Taylor thing, I'm gonna get emotional. I did not, back to the mural, my dad was like the one to pull me out of like my artist funk, because I felt like trash. I'm like, the world is burning. You know, they keep killing us. Like, I'm working from home. I'm teaching my kid from home. Like, it was a lot. And so I wasn't drawing. And so I feel like my dad kind of was just like, Nita, we got to do something. We need to do something, and we need to do it now. And he kind of pulled me out of that funk. And so when, you know, the whole thing with Breonna Taylor happened, I don't even think I really said anything. I didn't make a statement or anything like that, because it just, I didn't know what to say. You know, like I felt the feelings that everybody else was feeling. Like, okay, here we go again. They're mentioning 110 reasons as why they wouldn't do right by her. And it really reminds you, I'm gonna say this before I talk about the piece. It reminds you of like when they killed Emmett Till, and the jurors were back there just laughing or whatever, trying to make it seem like they were going to come out with the verdict. They stood back there and laughed so the time would make it seem like we were actually deliberating. No, it was just all up front. It reminded me so much of that, because the reasonings that the killers gave, everyone knew was a lie. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that they knew that everyone knew was a lie, but they could still get away with it. It didn't matter what they said. They could have came up with the most obnoxious things and it would have flew. You know, so when you think about that and you put it next to what happened with Breonna Taylor and the press conference that followed and the reasonings that they gave, which we all know was just BS, it's just like, it doesn't matter what you say, because we already knew that you were going to get away with it, you know? So when you see it fold out though, it's just like, it's another crushing blow. And so I thought, like, what can I do to honor her? And so I thought about making a tribute to her, just like the same way I did with Sandra Bland. I made a piece for Sandra Bland. It was nothing but her name. So I did the same thing for Breonna. And I posted it, and it's just like, as an artist, this is how I feel. I feel like it's just like something so small to give. But since art is my passion, like, this is my voice and this is what I'm saying. Like, this is like my apology to her. This is me saying that we're not going to, I hate that I learned your name this way, but now that I know it, like, we're just not going to stop fighting for you, because we can't, you know? So yeah, that's that.
And the final, this is not gonna be the final question, but it's like, it really brought up a point, because it's like, I've definitely I've been frustrated, especially I think I would say since George Floyd has, like, I've been really angry, and it's like you don't know how to channel those emotions, but at the same time to put out hope, because you're like, at this point, does it
Yeah.
matter? And
Mm-hmm.
I hate crying with all my, oh my gosh. But it's
And now
like,
I'm like, yeah, I get frustrated. I start crying. It's like, I just can't hold it back. So you good, girl. You good. Let it out.
but it's, how do you, like, especially with like you, how have you continued, like, in everything that you've experienced, how do you continue to have that hope that change will come, despite the fact that every single time we think that this might be it, they punch us right in the gut all over again? Like, what can you say to activists out there that feel like, okay, you know what, I give up, like, I can't do this
Yeah.
anymore, nothing's going to
Yeah.
change?
This is going to be a very long-winded answer, but I think that is necessary, because I feel like that now, and I felt like that 10 times before. What keeps me going is that if we don't fight for us, who will? Like, what is an alternative? Honestly, think about it. If we all just said, okay, we're done, what's an alternative? They kill us more? You know what I'm saying? There's not going to be anyone to stop them at all. You know, like, our life would just not get better. And this is something I included on my caption with Breonna Taylor. I remember talking to, like, my mentor, one of my professors at KU, when I was in undergrad. And I think it was like right after Freddie Gray. And they were doing all that, talking all that crazy stuff about him. And I'm just like, you know, you're a black man, you're a black professor. Does it get better from here? Like, you've seen it all. Like, does it get better? And he was like, no. I said, what? Like, I'm sorry. He said no. And I said, okay, well, in the end, do you honestly think that we're gonna win? And he's like, even if we don't, I'm not gonna go down without a fight. And it's like, you're right. I have no other option but to fight, because I'm not willing to accept the alternative. So you think about, you know, your generation, like your kids, the people that you love, like what are you willing to sacrifice to make things better for them? And although it feels like we've gained nothing, we actually have. If you think about the beginning of the Black Lives Matter movement, when it used to be that cops would get off paid administrative leave, you know, they would still get paid and they would go home, you know, but at this point that happens less and less. And that seems very small, but that's a win. You know, you think about the fact that we're even taking these people to trial in different situations. That seems very small, but that's a win. With Breonna Taylor, what happened after her death? What did they do? They outlawed the no-knock warrant. You know, it seems very small. So it's like you have to focus on the wins, and that doesn't make you naive. It doesn't make you like, oh, everything's Hakuna Matata. No, it makes it very practical, and you have to see that there's actually progress being made. Because if there weren't people who didn't push through, back through slavery, back through the civil rights movement, like we would not be here. You know, it's like there is no other option, because if we don't fight for ourselves, literally, no. One thing that really irritates me, not irritates me, but one thing that I hate to hear is like when people are like, when's the next MLK? We need an MLK to come. We need another Malcolm X. There's never going to be another MLK. There's never going to be another Malcolm X, okay? Just because there never will be. And here's the other thing. No one's coming to just be that person that we look to and just follow. That's not the way that the world works now. That way of leadership does not fit with this world. Instead, what is going to be is groups of organizations, grassroots organizations, and people from different faucets, different walks of life that are taking the mantle. They won't have the spotlight. They probably won't be notified, or like they probably won't be recognized until years after the fact. But just understand that the movement is too big to have a face put on it. You know, and that's actually good when you think about it. It's like, it's all of us. It's all of us. So when you think about, oh, when's the next MLK going to come? He's not. And that's okay. That's okay. It's not, this is way too big for one person to carry. And if you think about, if we had an MLK, what did they do to MLK? You know, it's just like, so it's like, do you really want to repeat that anyway? Like they just would have teared them down the same way they tear us all down. It's like, no, it's not going to work like that. You know, for people who just need to think about, how do I find the fuel to keep going? Take a step back, first of all, because self-care is essential. Burnouts are real. And if you feel like you're going too hard in whatever capacity it is, you probably are. Unplug and don't apologize for it. I don't do anything trendy like on time. I know that there were a lot of artists that were posting works right after the death of George Floyd and things like that. That's fine. That's how that's not how I work. And I didn't feel like I was lacking something because I wasn't contributing to the conversation. Because I understand like where my limits are. I understand what triggers me. I have to take care of myself first. And then I can see correctly. And then someone can pull me out. Even if there has to be someone that pulls you out of the funk, let them help you, you know. But don't be ashamed to feel like you're struggling or that you've lost hope, because we all feel that way. Okay,
That's
wait, I
good
can't.
to know. I've everything that you said, because they like basically.
I can't hear you. And there's still nothing on this one. Okay, say it again. Okay, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. What about now?
Yeah. Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. Honestly, you know what? Starbucks might become my place. Any words of wisdom for student activists who want to show their activism through their creative side?
Words of wisdom for student activists who wants to show their activism through the creative side. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Uh, I think that as creatives, it's very important to just to do whatever feels true and sincere. And I stress that in the time of social media being the way that it is. It's like, if your reasoning for creating a tribute is to go viral, you should not be creating a tribute. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not, like, when it comes to like Black Lives Matter and art, like, I don't, I'm real like off. Like, if you're just trying to go viral, trying to make it off of a piece, you should not be creating a tribute. But if it really aligns with who you are and you're just like, I just have to put something out there because this is what I do whatever feels right. Not something that you think everybody will love, not something that you think would get a lot of likes. Just do what feels right. And if they're having community projects and they ask you to be involved, do it. And even if it's stuff that's is for free or volunteering, like, do it. If your heart is with your community and they want you to lead something, do it, but don't rush it. And if you don't feel led, like if you can't make anything at all, that's fine too. Like, there are no rules for this, so that's what I would say.
Well, guys, that's all the questions we have for today.
I enjoyed our
thank
time.
you so much for sharing. I feel like I'm gonna have to meet up with you because we're in Kansas City. I feel like this is my chance to reach out and meet up. But thank you so much.
Yes.
Thanks everybody for watching. Again, this is K-State Culturally. So if you guys would rewatch this conversation or check out any of the other conversations, BSU, Instagram, as well as soon. Jessica and the Alumni Association will post up the next conversation soon. But thanks again, guys, for watching. And thank you so much, Anita, for coming on and sharing your words of wisdom with us.
No problem. Thank you, everyone. I love K-State. Woohoo. Let's go Wildcats. All right.
Okay, I'm trying to make sure. Okay. If you guys want to also check out an art, it's at Anita _Easterwood on Instagram. This is her Breonna Taylor